Great. So for those of you, again, just joining, I'm Leanne with AEC Business Solutions. Thank you for joining us for 5 shifts to increase employee performance and increase profits. We have a 1-hour presentation planned for you today. Your lines are muted based on the size of the group, and sounds like I think June's joining in. We have a little bit of feedback for some reason. So let me, June, maybe you can mute while I do the intro. I think for some reason it's causing some feedback.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And I'm not sure why. There we go. Just to make sure you all can hear the notes that I'm going to give, and then we'll have her join in. So again, the lines are muted. You can see why. It helps when we just have one person talking there. So we'll keep your lines muted, and you'll use the chat and the Q&A to be able to ask any questions. June will get to those at the end just based on the size of the group. But if you think of something as we're going, be sure to go ahead and type that in, and she'll get to those. If you have any technical difficulties, I'll also be keeping an eye on those questions. I'm going to send another email to you later this afternoon, and it's going to actually have a link to the PowerPoint slides, as well as a link to this recording and some additional follow-up information. So watch for that email from me later today. Again, it was lnowak@aecbusiness.com. So with that, I do want to introduce June Jewell. She is the founder and president of our firm, AEC Business Solutions. She is better known, I believe, for authoring Find the Lost Dollars, 6 Steps to Increase Profits in Architectural, Engineering, and Environmental Firms. Many of you have probably already read the book. If you haven't, again, I'll have instructions in the email where we can offer you a download ebook copy of that as well. So as I mentioned, June did author that book about 4 or 5 years ago, and the knowledge for creating that book came from her background in this industry, which goes back to about 1987. In all this time has worked with hundreds of A&E firms across the country. That's her sole focus. She did implement the Win2 and Deltek systems, so has great background in consulting with companies on making choices for the right ERP systems for their firms and helping them to implement them properly. So again, has worked with hundreds of firms, and was able to author that book, and then started getting a lot of requests from people about training and consulting around the content in the book. And going on 5 years almost now, developed AEC Business Solutions, this company, to be able to offer that training to a broader market than just doing one-on-one consulting. And we are actually revolutionizing training in the A&E industry with the way that we are now offering our programs to companies to be able to do just what we're talking about today, transform employee performance. And June will talk about that more when we get to the end of the presentation and hear more about our programs. So make sure you stick around for that. So with that, June's going to share some of that expertise with you today. So I welcome June Jewell to the line.
Okay, there we go.
There you are.
Hi, Leanne. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to have you all here today. We have, as Leanne mentioned, we have a really large group. So I'm excited to get your feedback afterwards. I always forget to say that. So I thought I'd mention it at the beginning that if you have any feedback or have any questions for me, I'd love to hear from you, because every time I do these presentations, I try to add new things. I was just on a meeting with a client this morning, and some of their people said some things, and I thought how I could incorporate that into this discussion. So every day it's evolving, and I'd love to get your feedback. I'm just going to share my PowerPoint with you so that we can get started with the content that I've put together. And again, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box so that I can look at that at the end and answer all of your questions. So today, I like to break down what is keeping your employees from performing at their top level. I mean, we all want our employees to perform at their top level. And so I've kind of identified 3, and there's actually 4 problems that I see going on in the industry right now about why employees really don't perform at their top level. So we're going to talk about that first, and then really look at the 5 shifts. You know, these 3 problems, the 4 problems are costing your firm a lot of money. And even if your profits are pretty good, you all, when you signed up for this presentation, you put into our questions, you answered what your net profit, project profit margin is. And it looked like, you know, the average in the industry is about 14 to 15%, or I should say the median in the industry is 14 to 15% right now. That's pretty high traditionally, the A&E industry, especially going back several years. But now things are pretty good right now because of, you know, everyone's busier. But still, even with 14 to 15%, if you think about that, attorneys make 30 to 40% profit. My opinion is that A&E firms should be doing much better than 14 or 15%. But about if 14 or 15% is the median, that means half of you are making less profit than that, and half of you are making more. And when I looked at the numbers of the group today, that's kind of what it looked like. It was as low as 2% for some firms. And actually, I think there was one firm that had a loss in their last fiscal year. And some firms were as high as 20. There were a bunch at 20, maybe 25. Some firms don't track net profit on their projects. They only track gross margins. So some people have reported that instead, but that's not as telling for us in terms of comparing it to the industry averages. So what I really want to do is help you fix whatever's going on with those 3 problems. And those 3 problems may or may not apply to you. But I want you to think about it and then look at the 5 shifts, because the 5 shifts really represent a change in a paradigm from what I think of as the old school way of running an A&E firm, and the new school. I am a big proponent of the new school. The old school is, you know, the school of hard knocks. The old school was the traditional way of running an A&E firm, and things have changed so much. So I'm going to really dive in and look at what the most progressive A&E firms are doing today to run their businesses in a more enlightened fashion, which really has the result of just completely transforming your culture and how your employees respond. And how they behave every day, which is directly going to affect your financial success, your profits. I'm going to give you some examples as we go along throughout. I have 3 or 4 examples, and then I have also some interesting examples from specific architects and engineers who we ask our clients a lot for their feedback. And we get some really interesting data, and so I'm going to share some of that with you. And then towards the end, as Leanne mentioned, I'm going to take a few minutes, not long, just to give you an idea of how we approach helping our clients make that transformation. We have a very unique process. We've been refining it over about 4.5 years, and it's been extremely successful. So I'm going to take just a few minutes at the end to share that with you. And we're actually going to be having another webinar in a few weeks where you can learn more at a detailed level about our system and our process that we use to transform A&E firms. So I'm only going to take a couple minutes in this particular presentation today to share that with you. So I want you to think about what's going on in your company right now, and you are in the right place if some of these things are happening, or this is how you're feeling, and you really, really want to try to figure out a way to address these issues. And you may have been working on this, or you may have tried some other things in the past and had mixed results. So first of all, PMs these days, project managers, are so busy, and it's very hard to get them to really tightly manage their projects. So if that's you, then we're going to talk about that. I have a lot of great ideas for that. If you're thinking, you have an A team, a B team, a C team, how do you get everybody to be an A team? may not be possible. There's definitely some constraints that are going on right now in just the industry with a shortage of talent that makes it very hard to make sure that all your employees are performing your highest. And so we're going to talk about that and some things you can do about that. And actually, in our next web presentation in a few weeks, how to become a top tier A&E firm, I'm going to dig into that area even more detailed, about the constraints with labor and retaining employees and things like that. If you're struggling with getting employees to follow your processes, to just do things that you ask them to do, maybe it's your timesheets or filling in data into your system, and you really just want them to focus more on what it takes to be successful. We're going to really talk about that today. And I hear all the time, we have actually a lot of clients who have employee-owned businesses, and they say to me all the time, we want our employees to take ownership. And you would think in an employee-owned business, where the employees are sharing in the profits, they would take more ownership, but that's actually not always the case. I find some differences, and a lot of that has to do with making these shifts. I really, really think that the firms that have already made a lot of these shifts are already finding that their employees are taking more ownership. Ultimately, all of this leads to more profit. And so that's really where the end game is, right? You can't keep your firm going and growing and give people good compensation without profits. So today we're going to shine the spotlight on your people. If you've read my book, Find the Lost Dollars, you know I go into depth about people, processes, and technology or systems. Today, we're going to really, really focus on people. However, our program that we have does deal with the processes and the systems. My personal belief is it's a huge mistake to put in new processes and put in a new system or multiple systems if your employees, if you haven't addressed the issues, these issues that we're going to talk about today with your employees first. You must deal with the employees first. If you put in a process or a system and your employees are not ready mentally, from a business acumen standpoint, from a paradigm standpoint, cultural standpoint, if they're not ready for those new processes and systems, you're going to get a lot of resistance and it's going to fail. If your people, you get them in that right mindset, they will help you develop your processes and systems. And so that's actually the gist of what we're going to dig into today. And I hope that's why you're here, and I hope that sounds exciting for you. So I want you to think about, what do your employees do every day? Very often when I sit down with firm leaders, I probably talk to, I don't know, maybe 10 A&E firm CEOs a week. Last week, I probably talked to 25 because I did an event and I had a bunch of them there that I got to meet with directly. But, you know, I talk to a lot of CEOs. I talk to a lot of leaders, firm leaders and business unit leaders, managers, CFOs, HR managers and directors every day. And when I ask them the behaviors that their employees are doing every day, they're not always sure. They know what their employees are supposed to be doing, but they don't actually always know what's really going on. How do your employees treat your clients? In your mind, you might have the ideal of how you expect people to treat your clients, but that doesn't mean 100% of your employees are doing that. There actually might be a great disparity there between how some people in one office do it and how people in another office do it. And that can be a huge issue. Your clients may be getting inconsistent service. How do your employees communicate? Do they speak a common language? Can they even communicate with each other and understand what each other are talking about? I was talking to a firm the other day and they were saying they had 5 different words for the word process. Some people called it a procedure. Some called it a guideline. Some people called it a policy. Some people called it a process. Some people call it a standard operating procedure. There was a lot of different words. Nobody knew what that meant. The systems they use. I have literally been in firms where I was investigating what estimating templates they were using, and there were about 500 of them. Well, I can promise you, if you have 500 estimating templates, invoicing formats, rate tables, that's a mess. And there's a lot of mistakes along the way. And then think about your culture. What is it that's really, really important to you that is driving that employee's behavior? Just earlier today, I was talking with a firm, and they have gotten into a habit of writing off a lot of their time. And there's a lot of reasons that happens. And very often it's driven by your culture. It's about what you talk about every day with your staff. So let's dig into these three big problems. First of all, employees just don't think about the business, right? What are they thinking about? Well, they're thinking about their jobs, right? Like when they're working on a job, they are head down, focused on that project, right? So that's what they're thinking about. But when they're not working on their project, they don't think it's their responsibility to worry about how the business is doing. They're thinking about their own mortgages and how they're going to put their kids through college and how they're going to take care of their aging parents. They are not thinking about the business. If you want your employees to think about the business, then that has to be an area of focus. They don't understand the connection between their timesheet and their paycheck. Think about that. In fact, most employees think that their timesheet is a compliance tool, not a business management tool. So they have a negative view of their timesheet instead of looking at it as something that can help the company make more money. So we're going to talk about all of this more as we go through the shifts. Second big problem. A lot of your employees are working in silos. A silo might be a team or a studio. It could be an office, completely separate geography. It could be a group of people that work together. They don't interface much with the rest of the people, or a business unit. What I find when I go and I interview and I analyze what's going on in these silos, they have their own way of doing things. They've created their own processes and systems. Systems might be spreadsheets, okay? A system doesn't have to be a system your company has necessarily paid for. It might just be a whole set of spreadsheets that they're using. There could be a huge amount of dispersion in the way people do things. And that's pretty typical, actually. I once worked with a firm, a very large firm, 900 employees, and they had 21 offices, and we found that they had 21 separate recruiting databases for recruiting employees. That wasn't working. They actually had multiple people in different offices interviewing the same people for jobs, and they didn't even know it. It's very hard when you have silos to get a new best practice. I consider a process a best practice, right? It doesn't even make sense putting a process in place unless it's a best way of doing it. But it's very hard to get people to change their ways. It's very hard to get them to adopt those best practices when they're in silos. And sometimes it just feels like you have many separate companies, and there's this strong resistance to change. And we are really going to look at why that happens today and what you can do about it, because it's very frustrating. The minute you try to put a new process or system in place, you're dealing with that resistance. And that's why I tell you, you have to deal with the people first. So problem number three, your staff are great technical people. They went to college and maybe even got a master's, but not in business. They don't even look at what they do as a business. They look at it as architecture or engineering or environmental consulting or geotech. They don't look at it as business. So their focus is on clients. You got to keep that client happy, and we have to deliver very high quality. They're not thinking about making a profit. That's not their job. Your project managers, because they don't understand business, they are out there doing all kinds of things every day that are undermining the profitability of your projects. It's not their fault. They've just never been trained in how to run projects profitably. And then the third thing, and this is really, this is just has more to do with the type of people that architects and engineers are, but it generally don't like conflict. It's very uncomfortable, and they don't like asking for money. That's the last thing they want to do, is ask for a change order or collections. That is so uncomfortable. And there are things you can do to address that, which we'll talk about a little bit. And then there's actually a fourth problem. Now, I added this fourth problem because it's a specific problem that is really prominent right now. And that is, you are too busy. Believe it or not, being busy can be a huge problem. If you want to read about all the issues that being busy can cause, I wrote a great article on our blog, aecbusiness.com/blog, called The Blessing and the Curse of Being Too Busy. There are good things about being busy, and there are things that just slip through the cracks when you're so busy. Besides the fact that there's such a shortage of talent and you can't find people, so that causes all kinds of problems, like having unqualified people doing work, hiring people who aren't star performers, all kinds of issues with that. It's hard to get things done, like training, selling. Selling slips through the cracks. Your seller doers don't have time to sell because they're doing projects. And just those important initiatives. You know, maybe you are trying to put in a new system or a new performance management process, and you don't have time because everybody's so busy. And then there was an article in Engineering Inc. magazine produced by ACEC late last year, and it said that in the next 3 years, 50% of your most experienced staff are going to retire. So we're going to start losing all this experience in our firms, which is going to make this whole situation more difficult, not easier. And the middle level of people are just impossible to find. And that is driving salaries up and making it so hard to retain your star performers, and just a lot of turnover. And turnover in itself causes conflict because you have to retrain people. It disrupts projects with your clients, just a lot. People take away their resident knowledge that they had. There's a lot of issues with being busy. So it's not always a great thing. I think because of that, and I'm going to show in our next web presentation in a few weeks, that profits are actually starting to decline now. And I think it's because of this. I think it's because salaries are going up, but fees aren't going up at the same pace. And so profit margins are going to start suffering and declining. So what does this cost your firm? If you really think about it, these 4 problems cause you to leak money from your projects. Part of these problems are when your employees don't follow processes and systems, time gets wasted because they're doing things inefficiently. Your clients don't get consistent service because of the silos. Your extra services don't get billed and collected because people are afraid to get change orders. Your invoices don't get paid quickly. You can't get the data that you need to make decisions because people aren't entering the data quickly enough into your system. So your reports aren't accurate. And then your growth gets stalled or chaotic. So we talk about growing too fast. That can cause a lot of chaos. If you have rapid turnover, even if you're just growing so fast, it's hard to find enough leaders to fill the gaps that you need to grow and manage all of the departments and projects and people that you have. So this is where the lost dollars are. And today we're going to focus on the employees because we want to get the maximum performance from every employee. And we have spent a lot of time over the last 4 or 5 years working with so many firms, small firms, large firms, every kind of firm you can imagine. And we have really seen what works and doesn't work. And so I really want to share a lot of that with you today with these 5 shifts. So shift number 1 is what I call top-down leadership. And we're going to now shift that to bottom-up leadership, which I'll explain in a sec. Top-down leadership is your old school. The owners made all the decisions, usually behind closed doors. Employees were not consulted for their opinions. The leaders of the firm created the policies and the processes and then kind of handed them down to everybody and said, you will do this. You will do your timesheet. You will fill out these forms. You will enter this data. And employees really had no say. They might have behind closed doors themselves been complaining because they didn't feel like what they were being asked to do was right, or they just didn't understand why they were being asked to do it. Maybe they thought it was cumbersome. And then you couple that with all the information being held closely to the chest, not sharing financial data, and there's this culture where employees don't feel trusted, right? And when there's that lack of trust, then you're going to have low buy-in and resistance to change. And you're going to have employees who have great ideas, but they're not going to share them with you. They don't think it's worth it to share them. And your project managers struggle because if they can't get all the financial information they need in a timely basis, they can't manage projects. So the new way, the new school way, which I'm a huge fan of, is ask your employees for their feedback. I promise you, your employees have really great information, or ideas, I should say. Even the youngest people in your firm have great ideas. And, I always hear people criticizing the millennials, but I'll tell you, they're extremely bright. They do have great ideas. Very often, your millennials have great ideas that are coming out of the tech industry because they're studying that stuff and they're interested in it. When you start asking employees for their opinions, they will be willing to help you to fix things. And that lowers that buy-in and lowers the resistance to change. And it makes them more motivated. And it improves the communication both ways. Now your employees start to feel trusted and valued. And they are less likely to leave your firm when they feel trusted and valued. So that's the first shift. I want to give you an example of one of our clients that did this. This is Davy Resource Group. It's actually a division of Davy Group, which is a really, really large firm. And Joe is the business manager of the Davy Resource Group division. And Joe really was trying to engage his PMs and managers, but he realized he really couldn't hold them accountable and really have the right conversations with them about sharing all of this information with them unless they understood what he was talking about. And so Davy Resource Group, and actually another division of theirs as well, engaged with us and put a few groups of project managers and other business managers through the Find the Lost Dollars training program that we run in 2016 and 17, and actually just did another group in 2018. So he's actually had 3 groups now. And they have seen remarkable results. In addition to just having more enlightened and educated and motivated staff, he's actually finding that they're making more money. Their profits increased 4% of revenue in just 1 year after starting this program. And their project managers are way more focused on managing their projects more closely, avoiding scope creep, and keeping their eye on the bottom line. And that was from our business training program. So that's a great example. They were Joe himself actually was one of our Find the Lost Dollars Client Award winner in 2018. So shift number 2, the old school way was, we don't think it's appropriate to talk about money in the firm. We don't talk about profits. There are some firms that still operate that way. They believe that that employees aren't motivated by talking about profit, so they don't talk about it. And so what do you talk about? If you don't talk about business, you talk about your jobs, your projects, very high quality. Regardless of whether your client has the budget to pay for the quality, you still give them the quality. And you want to keep your client happy. That's what you're talking about. That's what your culture revolves around. Even if keeping your client happy is causing your firm to lose a ton of money. Many firms still don't measure project profitability, which I believe is a mistake. Very often the scope of services is just ignored. Nobody in the firm's paying attention. And employees are consistently over delivering. This is a huge cause of what I call internal scope creep. Scope creep can be caused by your clients continuously changing their mind, asking for things, but it's also caused by your employees ignoring the scope. That's a huge problem. And then there's just not a lot of accountability, especially at the project or project manager level, about hitting targets and project targets. So you're going to lose money. You're going to have scope creep. You're going to go over budget. You're going to have long AR cycles. And, it ultimately becomes difficult to incentivize your best performing employees because your top performing employees actually want accountability. They want accountability. It's only your bottom performing employees that don't want accountability. And so it's very hard, if you're not as profitable as you should be, to incentivize those top performers to keep performing and to stay with your firm if you're not making high profits. So the new way, the shift, is to take your culture and focus your culture on profits. And, a lot of leaders will come to me and say, well, we don't like to talk about profits too much because, our younger people are focused on saving the world and improving the environment and all of these very important philanthropical type of ventures. And I come back to them and I say, you can't save the world or the environment without profit. You need money to do those wonderful things. And if you sell it to your employees that way, they will buy into it. I promise you. Focus on quality and financial results. Those two things can go hand in hand. It's just that many firms aren't focusing on it. This shift will massively transform your culture. In order to accomplish this shift, you have to change the mindset of your employees and the behavior and the education of your employees. And we're going to talk about that later. Employees, when there's this shift to a more profit-focused culture, they will start to pay attention to what they're doing every day and realize the impact that it has on the firm's success. And they will be more likely to help your firm succeed. You're going to have projects executed on budget, on schedule. Your employees will be more likely to follow those processes and use those systems because they're going to understand it. Extra services are going to get billed, and you're going to reduce all those write-offs and old AR because employees are going to be, they're just going to understand the importance of all of these important things. So another example of this situation with Sane Associates. Sane Associates is a firm in engineering firm in Alabama. Jim Meads is the CEO, and Jim really wanted to increase his profits. They were doing okay, but they wanted to be a top tier firm. They wanted to be above average in profitability, and they were struggling with that. They were just losing a little bit of money on every project, and their projects were failing to just hit those targets every time, mostly because their employees were just not focused on profitability. Jim decided he wanted to transform his business. He put 21 of his key staff through our Final Lost Dollars program over a 12-week period in 2017, and he saw remarkable results immediately. They became way more selective about what clients they took. That was one of their big issues. They kept being willing to take bad projects and bad clients, and we worked on that quite a bit. Employees just became more aware of their understanding between their utilization, their timesheets, project profitability, scope creep, how to treat their best clients better, and their profit increased 4.4% of revenue in 1 year, which was a lot of money in the bank that they were able to realize, and they're continuing to see a lot of success still. So shift number 3, the old school way. We take low profit projects. Now, I could spend hours and hours just on this subject because there are a whole lot of reasons this happens. It could be the clients that you have, right? They're just pressuring you. You're more of in a commodity type business with these types of clients. Maybe you've trained them over the years that every time they ask for something for free, that you give it to them. So sometimes it's our fault, right? We train our clients to have bad habits. Sometimes we just have this paradigm that, oh, our client's not going to pay that much money, so we just discount our fees all the time. Or we assume the market won't bear a fee increase. Even though all our expenses are going up, we don't increase our fees fast enough. Sometimes we just take loss leaders for whatever reasons. We want to get that new client, or we want to get experience in a certain market. So we just take these bad projects. And sometimes we put a go, no-go process in place and then we ignore it, or maybe you don't even have one, or you don't use it. And that's a pretty widespread issue that I see across the board. Taking projects that are not good and healthy for your company creates so many problems. Besides just losing money, your employees are not happy. And when your employees are not happy, they either leave or they cause problems. And ultimately, your employees want to love the work they do, and they want to love the clients they work with. And if the employees don't like your clients, they're not going to want to stay at your firm. And also, when you take a lot of bad clients and there's a lot of drama, and you put all your time and effort into taking care of them, you're ignoring your best clients. So it's really detrimental to have this old school way of doing things. The new way: refuse low profit projects. Just this morning, I was on with one of our great clients, and they already said, because of our program and the discussions that we've had and what they've learned, they just refused to go after a huge job, because when they did the appropriate analysis, they realized they were going to lose a lot of money on the job. And in the past, they just would have taken the job because they wanted the work, or they wanted to keep people busy. But it has such a detrimental effect on the business. When you can make this shift, this is a huge shift, you become more selective. You don't take loss leaders. You don't discount your fees. You diligently use your go, no-go process, and your services are valued by your employees and your clients. And you're not viewed as a commodity. And that's so important. This is going to dramatically change the whole culture of your company. You're going to have better projects, better clients, happier employees. Your strategic plan is going to be executed successfully. And you're just going to have a much better work environment. It's just going to create a whole different place to work. And you know what? Your project managers are going to be better project managers in this environment because it's easier to manage good projects than it is losing projects. Another case study, one of our clients, QK in California, a little over 100 people, they had a lot of low fee projects. They just got in that habit. They kept taking low fee projects. They had this one client that they considered, before they did our program, they considered this one client their best client because that's where a majority of their revenue came from. Their highest revenue client was not profitable. They were actually losing money. I like to say they were paying their client for the privilege of working for them. They had to discount their fees just to get jobs. That was the environment that they were working in. So they decided they wanted to transform their organization. They started off with putting 2 groups of employees through our Find the Lost Dollars training. And by the end of 2018, I believe they put at least 80 of 100 people through our Find the Lost Dollars training. And it has massively transformed their organization. First of all, they fired their highest revenue but lowest profit client, which, by the way, their employees were thrilled because they didn't like working for that client. They massively improved their project management processes and systems, which they could not do until they transformed their people, because their people would not have accepted these new processes and systems until they changed their heart and minds of their people. And they did that. And they're very focused on selling on value. So they look for clients that value the work and value what they're bringing to the projects instead of just looking at the price. In 2018, we did our first Find the Lost Dollars Client Awards. These are awards that we give out to companies that find the most lost dollars, have the most improvement in business management processes and practices. We also give individual awards to the individual employee who finds the most dollars. And we now, within our platform, we have a tracker where the employees can go in and enter in all the lost dollars they find. And one senior engineer, Lisa, found $75,000 in lost dollars herself. And she won our individual award for the employee who had found the most lost dollars. And I was just so thrilled and excited to give Lisa that award. They were able to increase their profits 4% of revenue in less than a year, which was about way more than a 10x return on investment for them in what it cost them to implement all of this. So they got their money back very, very quickly. So shift number 4. The old way was, well, we can't make our employees follow our processes. It goes back to the silos that we were talking about earlier and the lack of accountability. We just let people do things their own way. It might be because you're decentralized. You may not have documented processes. Most firms don't, by the way. And most firms struggle because of that. Everybody kind of has their own culture. And you find very often, and I saw this a lot when I was implementing Deltec, these companies would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their systems and then nobody was using them. And they were not getting their full return on investment out of these expensive systems that they had. So what happens when your employees don't follow your processes and systems, it costs your company a lot of money. It costs in inaccurate timesheets, which affects cash flow. Your reporting isn't accurate, so it's hard for your leaders to make good decisions. Teams and offices will underperform because they're not efficient. Your firm culture gets so disjointed. It sometimes, as I said earlier, it feels like separate companies. Everybody has like their own business. And you're going to end up with, and this is the danger, inconsistent work product and client service. To me, that's one of the big dangers of having this issue, because you may have clients that work for different business units and they may get a whole different way of being treated, even different methods of invoicing and everything, by dealing with different groups of people within your company. So the new way is you must get your employees to follow your processes. I consider a process a best practice. If it is not a best practice, I don't blame your employees for not doing it. If they actually have a better way to do it, then that's how your company should be doing it. This goes back to shift number 1, asking your employees for feedback. If they're not following your process, there's usually a reason. They believe their way is better. And what we do is we get all of the employees to contribute their ideas. We have an educated dialogue, and we come up with the best way to do something. Once everybody in your company has agreed on the best way to do something, they are way more likely to do it because it's their idea. They have buy-in. There is going to be that resistance. This is going to make a huge difference in your company. You're going to have more accountability, better profits, better cash flow, better client service. Everything's going to be impacted and things are going to run much more smoothly. And that's what we all want. We don't want chaos in our businesses. Sometimes it feels that way. It feels like chaos when everybody is doing it their own way. And that just doesn't work. The new way is to expect employees to be accountable and take ownership. So shift number 5, the old way, employees don't understand our business. So this is happens at many levels within your company. It happens very often, very heavily at the PM level. There's really no strategy or process to be a PM. There's no expectation about what a PM should be able to do, how to do it. They didn't really learn how to be a PM. They're not really prepared for the kinds of things that they have to do as a project manager, to manage people, to manage schedules, budgets, estimating, managing change orders and client expectations, client relationships. All of these things take concerted effort. And if a PM doesn't know how to do these things, they are going to struggle. They're going to feel like they feel like they're not doing a great job. And it's very difficult for them. This can affect every area of your business, your sales, your utilization, your profitability, everything. The new way is train your employees on how your company makes a living, that connection between the timesheet and their paycheck, which is all the things in between. When your staff are trained on business management, then everybody speaks a common language. They understand the financial reports that you share with them. They understand what KPIs are. They understand about utilization. They understand the why behind why you ask them to do their timesheet, or why you ask them to update opportunities in your CRM, or why it's so important to use the correct billing rates when you set up a new job. They start to care about things and doing things differently. I'm going to give you some more examples of that in a few minutes. Your profitable project should be expected. If you expect to get 15% on a project, but you end up with 10, then you have lost 5%. Where did that money go? Everybody should be paying attention to this. When all of your employees understand how your business makes a living, you will have a transformational experience going on. You will have a transformational culture. And your project managers are going to be confident. They're going to be confident to ask for a change order because they understand why it's so critical and the value that your company is bringing to your client. They're going to be more confident about preparing scopes and estimates, about having difficult conversations, about analyzing their project reports and their budgets and staying on top of approving people's timesheets and knowing what people are spending their time doing, making sure they have the right people scheduled. These are the little things that happen every day, those daily behaviors that make up your success. And at the end of the year, when you look at your bottom line, it's what happened those other 250 days of the year that people are working that make the big difference. So, our final case study, Hillman Consulting, one of our enterprise clients had a lot of scope creep. That was their biggest issue. They had project budget overruns, a lot of projects going over budget. It came down to 3 or 4 things. One is their employees had no focus on business. They did not understand how the business made a living. Nobody in the company had experience with business except for some people at the top of the leadership chain and the accounting department. Their business processes lacked a lot of consistency, a lot of documentation. Even the processes they did have, nobody was following them. Or I shouldn't say nobody, a lot of people. They wanted their employees. Chris Hellman came to me and he said, I want our whole team to be focused on our success. I want to change our culture. So in 2015-16, they put all of their professional staff, admin staff, leadership team through our Find the Lost Dollars program. In fact, they were one of our early adopter clients. So they've had the most experience over the most number of years of getting to continue to make improvements and focus in on their company success. Very quickly, they saw some immediate changes as a result of the program. They reduced scope creep, but project budget overruns. In fact, one of their departments, their environmental health and safety department, increased profits in 1 year from 2% to 20%. Oh, I think it was over 20%. And that was because they had one division manager who just went crazy with making lots of changes and really staying on top of the teams and getting everybody focused on that profitability in his department. Their employees walk around looking for lost dollars, and their profits increased 9% of revenue in 2 years. It's a lot of money. And actually, recently, their revenue increased, I think it was almost 50%, 40-something percent in 1 year. And most of that was organic revenue growth. And you can't do that when your employees are all running around in silos and doing whatever they want and not following best practices. You can't grow like that successfully and make a profit. So I want to share a little bit more with you about how our clients were able to see these kinds of results. Our approach, which is very unique, again, I'm just sharing this with you, but you may be able to take parts of this and do it yourself. Obviously, I'd love to work with you if we think we can help you. And I just want to give you a little bit more depth about what was the approach that what these firms took. So first of all, we have a very straightforward 3-step process. The first step is to figure out what's going on right now in your business. You can't create a plan for improving your culture and your operations unless you know exactly what's going on. The way we do that is through employee feedback and a very elaborate and detailed survey. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a sec, but we are able to analyze 9 areas of the business, and within each area, people, process, and systems, and get a ton of data and great feedback from employees, including their suggestions and ideas for improvement. So that's step 1. That usually only takes about a week to get all of that done. The second step is to do training. And we have taken the content of my book, Find the Lost Dollars, and developed a 10-course online program. And so the employees take the training online, and then we combine each of those online sessions with a group discussion. And normally our clients who are putting all of their employees through our program will do it in groups over a period of time. So this is an evolutionary process where you're training more and more of your employees over time. And I tell you, light bulbs go off for these employees when they go through this program. And one of the interesting things is we usually ask each employee to find $10,000 in 10 weeks, and we have them record it. And so our goal is to get a more than 10-time return on investment from every employee that goes through our program. And actually, there's even some states across the US that reimburse employers for our training costs. And if you want more information about that, we're happy to help you with that because we've done a lot of research. So the training is very foundational training. Your employees learn how business should operate successfully. An A&E firm. This is all architecture, engineering, environmental specific. We don't work with any other types of companies. The third part of the puzzle is we help you implement best practices and get your staff engaged on an ongoing basis to improve business operations. So you might be rolling out new processes, new procedures, implementing new systems, training employees on how to do things better. And that's the third step. We help you prioritize and analyze which things are going to give you the biggest financial impact, what it's going to take to get those things accomplished, and developing a plan and strategy and getting the right resources in place to implementing those key things. Usually only 2 or 3 key things per year that are going to make the biggest impact on your organization. And you know what? The work is never done really, but we do find extremely beneficial results pretty quickly with our program. As I mentioned, for the average employee, they are able to see huge results in just 10 weeks. So our business management assessment looks at 9 areas of your business: how you manage your sales, your proposals, estimating, scope creep and extra services, utilization and resource management, project financial management, invoice cycle cash flow, your IT systems and data management, and your client relationships and how you retain your existing clients. We do an in-depth analysis in all of these areas and provide a great amount of data for you. And then again, our training program, we have 10 courses, usually executed over 10 weeks, although you can do it over 10 days. You could do it over 20 weeks. Majority of our clients do 10 weeks, but you can do it any way you want that makes the most sense for your organization. I wanted to give you a few quotes from some of our clients that these were actual live quotes from our clients that went through the training. They're actual architects or engineer professionals. One of them said, "I'm reviewing project budgets more frequently and catching scope creep before it happens." Well, isn't that what you want all of your employees to do? And actually, it's not just the managers that manage these scope creep issues. Your employees on a daily basis get asked for requests from clients. And what you want them to do is take a step back and say, is that in the scope? Should I be doing this? Should I ask the manager? Should I, whether we need to get money? I guarantee your employees aren't doing that right now. So believe me, thousands of dollars could be just leaking out every week because of these kinds of issues. But once they've been trained, this is the changes of behavior we're looking for. I review billings in a more timely manner so we can get paid faster. They now make that connection. The timesheet, the invoice, the cash coming in the door. Now we can pay our employees for the work they did, when in fact we have to pay our employees before we get paid by our clients. And then another great quote: "I realize that keeping clients happy at all costs has resulted in avoiding asking for change orders. But to be fiscally responsible to our firm, I have learned to recognize that we need to recoup these costs." That is a paradigm shift. I promise you, most of your people don't think this way. They will think this way when you train them properly on how important it is to make money in the organization. And these changes can come quickly. It really is not a big investment of time. For most employees, it's about 2 hours a week for 10 weeks. And they're going to see a massive transformation. We are so confident that our program will be successful that we guarantee our results. For the clients that sign up with us, we guarantee that your employees will change their behavior and their performance, that your future leaders, you will build out much more greater leadership capability within your company. You're going to make more money. You're going to see different level of accountability and ownership being taken by your staff, because they're going to have more transparency, they're going to really get it. Your sales will go up because your employees are going to stop going after bad projects and projects they can't win, and they're going to focus on getting good clients. And you are going to have improved employee retention and client retention. Happier clients, happier employees. We guarantee this. And the reason that we guarantee it is because we don't take every client that comes to us. We sit down with you. We evaluate what's going on in your company. We want to talk to the firm leaders and understand their goals and understand their level of commitment to doing what it's going to take to make these kind of shifts, these 5 shifts. And if we believe that your leadership has the right commitment and mindset, and that there is definitely lost dollars to find, then we will sign up with you and accept you as a client, and you will get these results. And there are clients that we don't accept, because if we can't help you, then we're going to ruin our reputation. We're not going to have 100% happy clients. So that is our promise, our commitment. That's why we're in business. If we cannot guarantee that, I would shut the doors down of my company. And I believe every firm can be better. Even if your profits are 20%, with how busy we are right now, why not 25? What is standing in the way? I think every firm should be killing it right now with how busy we are. And if you're not killing it, let us talk to you and see if it makes sense for you to see whether our program can help you just take your firm to the next level. So if you want to learn more about our program, there's really 2 things you can do. You can sign up for our next presentation next week. Well, actually, there's 3 things you can do. You can sign up for our presentation next week if you just want to sit through another web presentation and learn about how we help transform companies into top-tier firms. That's a very interesting presentation. We have some industry data, and you would probably learn a lot about that from that as well. Or if you really want to learn quickly and get started, you can talk to us, and you can schedule a 15-minute call. Leanne's going to put a link in the chat box for you to sign up for a call with us. We're also going to be sending you an email later on with a copy of the recording of this webinar in case you want to share it with any other people in your firm. You might want to sit down with your leadership team in a conference room and watch it and then talk about it. That's what I find has been getting our clients the biggest momentum, is when their leadership team sits down, goes over these things, and really talks about what it would mean to their firm to make these kind of transformational shifts. So you're going to get a copy of the recording, you're going to get a copy of the slides, and you're going to get a link here to sign up for a call to see if it makes sense to talk with us further. And we're happy to answer any other questions too. If you want to ask some questions now, I'm happy to stay on and answer all of your questions. If you would like to reach out and talk one-on-one, sign up for a call with us. We're happy to talk with you, and I'd love to work with you if it makes sense for us to work together as partners to transform your organization. So thank you so much for your time today. And I just want you to remember that today, what you do today is going to affect where you are in a year. That's my new mantra. Every day I try to say to myself, What can I do today that's going to get me to where I want to be in a year? And in a year, you're going to wish you had started today. So that's a philosophy, my new philosophy that I'm trying to live by every single day. And I hope that hits home with you as well. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm just going to check here to see if we have any. Oh, I don't see any questions right now. If you have any questions, please post them. I know we've gone over our time. I'm sorry for that. And I really appreciate all of you sticking around so long. We have a lot of you still on. So thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting with you and talking with you and seeing if we can help you or not. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.